Alright, thought I'd show some upgrades and additions for the ham radio and communication kits that I'm putting together. You might have seen some earlier videos if you're following this stuff on the Go Bag, the radio kit Go Bag, and there was some legitimate criticisms of that. I'm not an expert with that stuff. I'm just a guy who's putting the kits together and trying to get something that's going to work, be complete, and relatively on budget. My personal choice when I'm working these kits out is, especially with the potential for costly, sensitive electronics that could be damaged if something gets hooked up wrong. I want to do all my testing with cheap radios, okay? Because the antennas are the antennas, the SWR meters, the battery, the power systems. All those remain consistent whether or not you're using a high-end radio or a low-end radio. If you learn those hard lessons and fry something or short something on a high-end radio, you lose that. And so I'm not going to get the Yaesu 817 until I've got everything else squared away. One of the things I've decided to go with is this little Lexen for the portable kits. It's a 10 watt radio, so that's half the transmitting power of the Jointai 6188. I think that opens up the possibility of more portable antennas because I'm not overpowering the portable antennas. Now, the hookups on the back is that same, what is it, PL259 or 239 connector that's on all of the other radios. It's actually a metal housing. It's relative. It has a speaker in the housing. It does everything that the 6188 does. It's a less expensive, lower powered radio. One of the things I noticed though is that this is not a programming jack. This is a speaker out jack. There is a programming cable that came with it. Sometimes these come with it and sometimes they don't. I think I actually have another cable laying around somewhere, and it came with a little CD with some software for doing the programming. You can program these manually, but it's a bear. So pretty much everybody gets a master program on one of these things in the software on a computer, and then once you program that radio, it's going to hold that. That's kind of what we're looking at. I misplaced a CD that came with it, but it's also downloadable software. The power, 12 volt power. So I bought a 12 volt lithium ion battery pack. This was being discontinued just because the company was going to start moving to some different models. People at Batteries Plus hooked me up with a good deal on it. One of the things that attracted me is it has an onboard fuse, onboard charge controller, onboard battery diagnostic, which you press the button and you get your onboard battery diagnostic. And it was compatible with another little charge controller thing that they had that plugged into here that is not USB. So that's just something we're going to end up not using. What I liked about this was they were talking about using this thing for like lawn mowers and motorcycles and stuff like that. Was that a little scooter type thing, electric start type stuff, is that if it's getting kind of the irregular 12 volt power, which can be like 14.5 off of a running vehicle, the voltage regulators, charge controller type stuff that's on lower end vehicles tend not to be very precise and are set for lead acid batteries. This X-Power battery automatically self-compensates. That's the onboard charge controller. So I can feel confident hooking up let's say a low-end Harbor Freight type charge controller to this thing and know that I don't have to have a special setting for a lithium-ion battery. This battery has the onboard controller that's going to do that. I'm just not going to hook that battery up straight to a solar panel because I don't want that solar panel roasting my onboard electronics. I want a separate charge controller in that when it's hooked up to a solar panel. Piggybacking this into a vehicle electrical system, is this going to start my truck when the truck's main battery dies? No, of course not. But the truck's electrical system can hook up through, let's say, an auxiliary cable, keep that thing charged while I'm on my way to some event or something where I would be using the two-way radios, and I know I've got a fully charged lithium-ion power supply that could actually run this stuff for quite a while. Okay, because again, we've got a duty cycle on the radio, 10-watt radio, 84 watt hours. I could run that radio for hours off of that battery, assuming I'm not talking the whole time. Another thing I got for transmitting is really a broadcast station. These little buggers are kind of a pirate radio station in a box right here. They say it's a 7-watt transmitter. Some of them are rated up to 20 watts. If you really want to transmit more power on one of those, you hook it through an amplifier. It comes with an FM antenna, this one right here, that it's an extender, right? Like you'd see on an old 70s style boombox. And the instructions explain that the lower the frequency, the shorter you have the antenna. The higher the frequency, the more you extend the antenna out. The connectors on it, though, are not the same as the ham radio stuff. I'm not quite sure what that connector is. It looks like a BNC, but it's not because it's an actual screw-in. I would like to find out what that is. Anybody out there knows what this is? I'd love to hear it. If you guys can let me know what this is. Because what I want to be able to do with this is have the box in a safe and dry place. It's not weather resistant by any stretch. And then run a cable to the antenna that would be elsewhere, some distance away, probably an elevated position. But this allows me to transmit to a convoy where not everybody has the radios, at least not the two-way radios, but as long as you have, a regular FM car stereo, we can put word out what the channel we're going to be on and then work that way. Now you've got two input feeds here. It really doesn't matter which one's audio, which one's mic. The idea is that if you're doing your little pirate radio station with music, you would be able to run your iPod or your iPad or something off of this with a music feed, and you can turn that up or down according to your microphone feed, which you would have the radio station voiceover. And that's basically what that boils down to. This is your channel changer power button. 12-volt power on this, so it comes with a wall plug adapter, for whatever area you're going to be in. 2 amps of 12-volt power means that I could still run this for a while. We could still run an FM broadcast station for a while on a lithium-ion battery. But again, if you're going to run an amplifier, you're trying to push more distance, is really about your amplifier. This is just basically your frequency in your mixing box. And for, transmitting one block or within the same building, you would be able to keep people you want updated. Other stuff I've added to the kits, the SWR meter, wire, cable, antenna adapters for this, because again it's a PL259, 239 type setup, but I want to be able to use BNC quick detach connectors. Was able to get some of these things. These are what's used in improvised antennas. I built one according to some instructions online. Basically it's this little contraption which normally you would stretch out these wires on a stick. The black is a ground, so that's basically a ground plane. This was cut to the frequency I wanted to transmit at. It looks goofy, but when you have a custom cut antenna where you actually cut the wire to the exact length for the exact frequency you're transmitting at, you're going to have a more efficient, cleaner signal, which on this translates to a lower movement in the needle when you go to check it. So this I added to the mix. One of the things with testing these antennas and getting them cut, getting them set to a particular frequency is I can make mistakes, okay? I might fumble it. And so I want to do all of that testing with a cheaper radio. That's one of the reasons I picked this LeXN. They're an $80 radio. It works like the Juventai 6188. I picked that because it's inexpensive, it's relatively robust, it's going to get the job done for those portable radio jobs. where I want to get communication up and running and everything tested before I would go and hook a high-end radio with digital communication up to the system and then have that thing at risk of something shorting out, not being quite right, wires being loose, connectors being wrong. One of the things I've run into is these little connector adapters that you use on the extension cable. The more connectors and adapters you run through an antenna system, the more negative feedback you're going to get on this thing and the further that needle goes over. If that needle goes actually or 1.2, 1.5 on the SWR, if you start getting into the 2 and 3 range on there, you're probably, you're not going to have a good time transmitting. And my opinion, you got to have low SWR, tunable antenna to get that digital mode stuff working right. That's one of the things over in Survival Tech Nord channel is he's doing a lot of that digital mode stuff, but he's also using a $300 really fancy high-end antenna, which will get really fine-tuned audio quality through that signal, because that fine-tuned audio quality is what you need for those digital modes to function right. With just talking, yeah, it's not as critical, but I want to be able to do custom antennas at different locations and just leave them there. They're cheap to produce, they're cheap to make, do homemade. I got this. This is supposedly able to handle 100 watts. I don't understand that, because it's much smaller and lighter weight than the other dual band antennas. It was rated for that much. I don't think it can handle 100 watts. I don't understand that. It's a BNC connector, so I'm hooking it up through the double female thing here, and I had to test a few to find one where the whole system with the adapters had low SWR. So I can run an adapter, I can run a short cable, which I have here, hooked up to the homemade jungle antenna. I can hook that up to this, and then this is probably what's going to live in a radio bag in the future. I'm going to set that radio bag up with a 10-watt radio instead of the 25-watt radio. I've made that decision. That spare 25-watt radio, I think, is just going to be it's going to go in one of the vehicles and stay there, or it's going to go in a Faraday cage. And so that's the state of my radio preps right now for the guys that wanted an update.